of the fall sports. So, Tim, I guess you're up, right?
My name is Tim Chuckle, and I am the Assistant Activities Director for Hudson Schools. It is my pleasure to be here supporting the students and share their fall experiences at Hudson High School. Thank you. And we'll start out with cross country.
Hello, my name is Mono Field.
And I'm Saprina, and we're your senior captains. So some challenges that have come through cross country are captain's practices from getting up. It's in August and July, and we get up at like 7 a.m. and run every morning. And some more challenges are like getting like the mental toughness of running and getting through like mile repeats and hills and tempo runs. And like meets, which are every Saturday. The most memorable thing that we think and that our team would also think is definitely the team bonding things we do. We like do a lot of team bonding things in the summer and throughout the year that are not just involving running, but just hanging out.
Participating in cross country, I think, has helped me grow personally and each of my fellow teammates. It teaches me that I'm a lot more capable of difficult things and challenges and overcoming hardship than I originally believed. And it's really a beautiful thing to meet a challenge and, you know, be afraid and feel like, oh shoot, I don't know if I can run this race. I don't know if I can make the next mile. I don't know if I can do this. And just the value of team and friendship and encouragement and being able to look back and say, you know, I overcame this challenge. It gives a lot of power to individually to me and teach my teammates to think that, you know, we're resilient and we can push through this. And I think cross country, you know, I can't say more than any other sport, but it seems to me just is really it's been super important in learning, my own resilience and the way that I can overcome challenges and obstacles. I think cross country has taught me the importance of community and family. You know, my team, like Sophie said, we do a lot of team bonding, and the truth is I look back in these 4 years and this is like my family. You know, these are the girls we overcome challenges with, and these are the girls we you know, we cry together, and like, no, seriously, we cry together and we laugh together, and it just builds something really special. I think one of the most memorable moments I had this year as a captain, we do a lot of hard workouts, and, you know, maybe Sophie mentioned briefly, we do some mile repeats, for example, and, you know, you run a mile kind of at a really fast pace, you take a break, you run it again, and over and over and over. And our coach gave us, you know, he gives us the option. Look, varsity is going to run 2 more. The rest of you can be done. But if you'd like to run, you know, if you'd like to run these, you can do it. And obviously, like, who would want to like run more if they didn't have to? But no, I think just it was a moment of pride as a captain to see all these girls who didn't have to do the extra work, but wanted to because they knew they were strong enough and they wanted to. I think, you know, we were a team in that way. It didn't matter if you were JV or varsity. We were going to do this together, and we were going to push through this together. And I think, you know, looking back, I would say really cross country has been the best part of my 4 years of high school, and I've been super excited to be on this team. And they've meant a lot to me. So yeah, that kind of sums up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Henry Saprina, the senior cross country captain, and this season I think we did great. And when we started out in the season, the beginning of the season, we didn't start out so strong, and throughout the season we put in work, put in the hours, and we trained hard, and we ended up improving greatly, and we ended up winning the conference. And we made it to sectionals, and we went to sectionals and got second place to Alaska, which they won state. And then we went to state, and we all achieved our goals that we wanted to. And I think we we mostly improved greatly throughout the season.
I'm Ethan. I'm one of the sophomore captains. We have a very young team as we have 1 freshman, 5 sophomores, and a senior on our varsity team. We have a very promising future ahead. This is something I'm very excited for as we continue to grow. I think there's a lot of success on our future.
All right.
My name is Owen Marnell. I'm one of the senior football captains. And I think one of the bigger aspects of this season was the Ingenium leadership program that we implemented. It was put in a couple years ago by defensive coordinator, Mr. Hatfield. That's definitely grown since then. Just starting last year, we met probably a couple times a week to discuss, individually that is, to discuss goals with Mr. Hatfield. You know, he kind of just wanted us to set goals for ourselves, and he would kind of help to keep us accountable to just work towards those goals. It came to, you know, what kind of grades we wanted, what we wanted for our future, college or not, what we wanted for college, just things like that. And then over the summer, all of the seniors got together. We met once a month. We actually were able to meet with Todd Gilbert, local business owner, and he was able to bring in his leadership experience through the business he owns and talk to us about leadership in the workplace that could be applied to our team. It definitely helped. I think it definitely you know, made us think more about the leadership aspect, the social aspect of the team, and not just winning through playing football, but winning through you know, connections and stuff like that. So as we kind of went on with our meetings, we talked about, you know, some really deep stuff. We went into servant leadership, we went into sponsorship, we went into really making sure the younger guys on the team, they have a place as well, and that I think that really changed the culture of the team going forward, because I think I can speak for Evan and Jonathan here as well as the rest of us, that when we were those younger guys, when we were those freshmen and sophomores, there wasn't really that connection with the older kids as much. We didn't really have that leadership. You know, we were kind of just there. We learned from the coaches, not so much the players. But I think that really changed this year. We built connections with the younger kids. We helped them to find their place on the team and know that just because they weren't getting playing time, that they were important too. And I think it was kind of the stuff like that that really is going to help the program going forward. And, you know, the culture's probably changed forever.
Hi, I'm Evan Tyler. A brief summary of our season was we finished 5-5. Some of our big wins were against River Falls at their place and then at Menominee. We ended up making the playoffs, but we lost first round because we dealt with some really unfortunate injuries. But we were a very resilient team. I felt like we had a lot of injuries, but we always came to practice focused. We ended the season with 8 all-conference selections and 12 all-state academic selections.
Yeah, I'm Jonathan. We had a really successful season. We had a really strong senior class of guys that all worked together to really build a successful culture on our team. We worked really hard. Some challenges we overcame. We lost our coach halfway through the season. Our head coach, he had COVID, which was difficult. You don't really lose your head coach that much, but we came together as a team, had a really good group of seniors, had a really good group of coaches, and we learned a lot about how to be a family and how we can take what we learned in our 4 years of football and then put that to the rest of our life. And it's a lot of fun, and we're really thankful for the opportunity.
Hello, my name is Darren Chuckle.
My name is Lucas Bierman.
Not Trevor Navabacher. And we were the 3 captains on the boys soccer team this fall. This fall, our team had a record of 17-3-2. We won the Big Rivers Conference Championship, the WIA Regional Championship, the WIA Sectional Championship, and lastly, we were runners-up in Division I State Championship. During the season, we experienced many ups and downs. Some of the downs included players getting injured and sick. Although that was out of our control, we found ways to make sure we could move around these obstacles and work together to be successful. Many people stepped up to provide that necessary piece that was needed for us to move forward as a team. This year, being a captain helped me to understand that I can not only lead teammates through my actions, but also being someone that they could reach out to and use as a resource. Playing sports specifically at HHS has shown me how lucky we are as student athletes to have all the necessary resources to be successful, and it has helped us to grow as young men, students, and athletes. My best moments from this season have been being able to hang out and become close with the boys because then it not only has helped us on the field, but it has created friendships and bonds that will carry on long after high school and soccer. Thank you.
All right, so we finished with, we had the best Hudson High School boys soccer run in the history of Hudson. Finishing in the state final, we lost, but that was a good bonding moment for the team that I don't think many other teams have had in the past. And overall, I think it was great.
Along with that, we had 4 first team all conference, 1 second team all conference, and then 2 honorable mentions.
The opportunity to attend their banquet last night, and they didn't even mention tonight that I thought the Notebook that you guys watched as a team was your big bonding moment. You said you watched the movie The Notebook together, so it's kind of, they failed to mention that tonight. That's shocking. So.
Hi, I'm Maddie Gill, and I'm one of the swim and dive team captains. I'm beyond proud of how our team did as a whole this year. I think overall we had a very tight-knit group of girls this year, and I'm just so proud of each and every individual on the team because many personal records as well as school and pool records were broken this season. And I think everyone had their own little victories this year, and it was really cool to watch everyone achieve those. Just to highlight a few of our achievements, we were 2nd place in the BRC and 3rd place at sectionals just this past weekend. And it really goes to show how dedication and hard work can pay off. There were definitely some challenges during our season. There's a point in the season where training becomes more intense with swimming and diving, and things just get more difficult overall in and out of the pool as homework loads don't lighten up and we're starting to get prepared for conference and sectionals. Things definitely get more challenging, but through resiliency and perseverance, we were able to overcome that and become more close as a team.
I'm Hannah. And one thing that I learned as being a captain is that we handled challenges by leaning on each other, and when things got really hard and practice was seemed like so repetitive, we learned that we can support each other in every way. And one of my favorite memories was just this past weekend at sectionals. Over half of our team came and supported us, even if they weren't competing. And after every race, we were all cheering each other on as loud as we could, and we were supporting each other. And that's just something that was really stuck out to me because it's we cared about each other more than just what we did and how we performed. We cared about how we reached our goals and we worked, all the hard work paid off.
My name's Jordan, and we're from the girls' tennis team. Just to highlight a few things this season, we got 2nd in the BRC, and we finished 1st in our section to qualify for state for the 2nd year in a row, and also the 2nd time in school history. We had 5 out of the 6 eligible individual teams make it individual state as well. 4 first team all conference and the rest of the team second team all conference. And our one note about sections is that all 10 of our top 10 right there made it through each round. It was in the finals. So that was a pretty cool thing.
And I'm Claire Keach. I'm also another one of the tennis captains. And we had a lot of challenges, especially at the beginning of the year. Competitiveness during tryouts fueled a lot of drama, and a lot of the girls felt like they weren't being treated fairly. So that was a really big challenge that we had to overcome. But after time and after we went to a few tournaments and we traveled together, us captains, as long as the coaches, we were able to realize that we are all working together for a common goal. So after working through hard times and coming together after losses, it really helped our team bond together. And facing challenges like this, especially as captains, helped us grow as leaders because it forced us to step up and step outside of our comfort zone. And that's something that is very valuable. And I'm glad we got the chance to experience and go through challenges like that, especially as a team and all together.
Hi, I'm Bailey, and I'm going to share my favorite memory from the season. Everybody's probably from sectionals is up there, but I really liked it because we initially lost to Memorial in the conference. We got second place to them. We ended up sweeping them a lot in the sectionals. It was really cool to see everyone get really excited like we did last year because our win was kind of validated by the fact that they weren't in the conference last year. So it was cool this year to beat them and actually have that win for us and go to team state without them there, or even in this year they were in it. And then also being able to be at team state and walk at Madison together and do all the fun stuff, and then also be at a really high level that made us all challenge and really value the playing and all worked really hard to get to that level. And I'm really proud of everything that we did this season.
Hi, I'm Elena. I'm a junior captain of the volleyball team. And basically, this season has been like no other for Hudson volleyball because we've had some of the biggest like student section turnouts that like we haven't been able to have for like the past 2 years because of COVID. We haven't been able to have students in the gym. And then we had a lot of like challenges that we had to overcome this season. And the girls on our team showed a lot of grit and dedication to overcome those challenges. This season's varsity team and program, like as a whole, showed a lot of chemistry in the gym. So like it wasn't just like whether or not you're on varsity or JV, like the program as a whole felt like as one.
Hi, I'm Ava Blang. I was our senior captain. This season was really exciting for a lot of us, especially as seniors, because last year during COVID, we didn't get to have the student section, and we were wearing masks, and sometimes it was even like debated if our parents would be able to come. So being able to have a quote unquote normal year where we could have those student sections and have all that support was really big for us. This year we had a team that demonstrated a lot of drive and a lot of hard work. This was really evident after our pre-tryouts and our tryouts, where we had morning sessions and afternoon sessions that were about 2.5 hours long for 2 weeks. So after you get girls that go through that, you get a very hardworking team. And I think that was really shown during our season. We started off with some losses, some that we expected and some that we definitely should have won. But, the tide definitely changed after we won our home invitational tournament, where we not only won all of our games, but we won all of our sets. And after that point on, we won all the rest of our conference games, which was really big for us. And we ended up getting 4th in the conference, which if you asked us at the beginning of the season, I don't think we would have placed ourselves there, but it was definitely nice to see the growth that occurred in our team. And we did win our playoff game 3-0, and it was really nice because it got to be a home game, and that was just a really good way for us seniors to end our season. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nina Miller. I'm the junior captain for the Hudson Girls Golf team. To start off our season, we were invited to many invitationals during the summer, and then it led to our season throughout the school year, which were pretty great. We also have been to regionals and sectionals. We placed second and fourth, which wasn't our best rounds, but that's okay. Overall, my mom was proud, so win-win. Yeah, we didn't get to move on to state, but that's okay. We'll get them next year. So.
Hi, I'm Matt. What's nice about golf is that we're a team, but we play as individuals, and we all work together to, score and everything. And all the girls from all the different schools. It's not like we're, like contact or like any basketball or like that, but it's like not like so competitive. Like we become friends and we're all like talking and while we're playing, like we're still competing, but we're all friends at the end of the day, and it's nice because after the season's done, we still make those friends. We have those friends. And overall, I think we did really good and we played well in the conference. Next year, we're confident that the girls are gonna, win it. And we had multiple all-conference players this year, and I think that we'll get it next year.
All right. Well, great job, everyone, with your presentations. I just had to ask, we got this photo up now. I'm just curious. Has this been the participation every year? This is more people out for girls golf than I remember in a long time, but great to see it. I'm also curious, like, if that's broken down by evenly split among the grades, or is that mostly underclassmen? Do you know? Who can answer that?
It's doubled last year.
Okay. All right. Great to hear. We got good futures in all our sports. Great job, everyone. And boys soccer, thanks for bringing home the hardware. That was really cool to see. And we've had success in various programs over the years, but it's always good to see improvement. And I like to hear how many academic all-staters we have in some of these sports. So that's really important. Any other comments from any of the board members? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming.
So give me a second. Yeah. So many things, actually. Yeah. Yeah. And then it's just hard. They're all fun. So they also use interesting. Usually goes to a company. No.
Is this about being delegate?
Yes, it goes to that's a coveted newcomer's position.
But I've done it once.
I know, so I think it's a cater mile.
Yeah, he's on Main Street. What, you ready?
We're gonna end up with 3. Well, I still got 2 people filling paperwork out if you want to get started.
Okay. We'll move on to the next part of the agenda is citizens' request to speak. First up will be Jessica Johnson speaking about masks. Yes, please.
Into this?
Yes.
Okay, how much time do I have?
You can have 3 minutes because I guess we have 3 people speaking. So
Thank
if you need 3 minutes, that's fine.
Perfect. My name is Jessica. I live in the Hudson School District. I'm here today to advocate for my daughter, who attends one of the Hudson elementary schools. The school district is requiring her to wear a mask this week, the entire week. That's 7 days, or that's 7 hours a day, 5 days a week for a total of 35 hours in an apparatus that inhibits her breathing. Saying that out loud is disturbing to me, and in the hopes that it may register with one of you, let me say it again. It inhibits her breathing. Let me preface my point with this. My daughter is having a fantastic school year. Every day she comes home with a smile on her face, stories to share which detail what a wonderful day she had. She loves her teacher, she loves her friends, she loves her school. The weeks where she is forced to wear a mask are a stark contrast to this. She comes home and her body, her mood is sluggish. She complains of headaches. Today, one day during math, she was having a hard time understanding the material. She said that her chest started to get tight and felt like she was having difficulty breathing. My daughter was anxious and felt like she couldn't breathe. She wanted to go down to the nurse's office, but her friend sitting next to her had already gone down because she was feeling dizzy. So she sat there feeling miserable. Last week, I was at County Market doing some grocery shopping and I came across a large container of blue mask, child size. The label on the front of the mask packaging reads the following: this mask is for personal use only. This anti-dust, breathable, disposable ear loop mask has not been tested or rated and is not suggested for medical use. Made in China. This is not an uncommon packaging to say that it is not a medical device, yet here we are, forcing my daughter to wear a mask to protect her from dust. The injections have now been approved for all school-age children. In the past, the discussion around masks always revolved around the fact that elementary-age children couldn't get the injection, and therefore they weren't protected. Well, it's official, they may now receive the injection, and therefore it's now time for the school board to reevaluate the masking policy. Let me end by saying this: not one of you love my daughter the way that I do. No one knows my daughter the way that I do. I'm telling you that forcing my daughter to wear a mask is detrimental to her well-being. My daughter is my everything, and I will not sit by while you force her to wear this ineffective mask, which restricts her breathing. It's time to end the forced masking. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Richard Hess. I'm not sure what your subject matter is, but
Well, you're not sure, I'll give you an update. My name is Richard Hess, been in Hudson now for 6 months. I want to give you where our city is at from our perspective, and you don't have to take notes. I have it all ready for email once I get you all up. City of Hudson, where are we at? The first 20 years of our family of 4, we were in a group of the less fortunate. From the Hudson City Census report, here are some facts. Number 1, we have 14,103. Number 2, 16.4% are 65 plus. Number 3, 6.5% are 65 over with disabilities. Number 4, 8.9 live in poverty. So 21.8% of us are the less fortunate at this time in the city of Hudson. Those of us over 65 are on Social Security and receive an adjustment of 1% for 2021. Inflation this year is 2.8. So we need to reduce our cost by 1.8. All of our costs this last year went up over 5%. We have 4 organizations who plan to increase their revenue with increase our cost. Number 1, the school board. You have a referendum under consideration. That's going to have an impact. You're going to take it supposedly from we, the taxpayers. So you got 22% of people that are super sensitive to any increase in cost. COVID reduced our economy downward and is forecasted to take over 1 year to recover by the end of 2022. Taking more monies from all of us at this time would harm the majority of us and especially the less fortunate. The golden rule says do no harm. Do we walk or do we just talk? Any questions?
Yeah, we don't have interaction with the people who
Oh,
speak.
you don't? This
No.
is my first time, so bear with me.
Okay,
The rules.
That's
And
all right.
I'm sorry for being late, but I was told it's at the high school. Put in 2 calls today, not a call from anyone.
all right. Well, thank you for your comments.
Yes. So this is for you to think, plan, and think ahead. I will be back many times because I'm going to challenge your referendum. I'm going to want to know your school trending for the last 3 or 4, 5 years. I want to know your percent levy. And I want to know your school statistics related to scholastic achievement. Okay, it's called accountability. You know what that's all about. So I need to be brought up to date. I am not in favor of taking more money from taxpayers by a referendum. The state has promised to give you 2/3 funding. If you're not getting it, I would like to know why.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. Your time's up.
Thank you.
All right. And we have one other request to speak, but it's not from a person that's within our district. And we request that all be citizens of our district that speak. It's been our policy and we're going to hold to that. So, okay. Well, I'm so.
Native American Indian, which I have sovereignty everywhere.
Okay. Well, thank you. You're welcome to submit your comments by email. All of us board members read those. All right. So thank you for your time. All right. Next up is Superintendent Reports.
So I'm going to hit, I guess we'll hit the K-8 music curriculum update to start off. So we have turn over to Dave for that.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to invite Lisa Skoyan and some representatives from our music team up to share a little bit about our music curriculum. And in the past, last year, we focused a lot of these presentations on the phases of the curriculum improvement process. We'll continue that focus this year, so you learn more about not only the content, but that process we use to improve and review our curriculum. This year, we're going to focus on some more specifics. As an example, tonight you'll be hearing about the prioritization of the standards and some specifics on how we go through that process. It's incredibly important. If we do that part right and we prioritize the standards right, everything else seems to fall into place. Music team has done some great work in phase 1. I'll turn over to Lisa to share the details.
Okay. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to introduce the music teachers that will be presenting with me tonight. Lindsay Yench is a music teacher at Willow River Elementary, and she's one of our music department heads, or a department head for music. And we have Erin Mayer, who is a choir teacher at the middle school, and Rachel Nitfer, who is our orchestra teacher at the middle school. All right, now we can start the presentation. This slide shows an overview of the Hudson music program. The required courses are K-5 music 3 times a week and 6th grade general music. The electives include orchestra for our 4th and 5th grade students and band, choir, and orchestra for our 6th through 8th grade students. The music standards include 4 standards: create, perform, respond, and connect. And they focus on the artistic processes. The standards for music are organized by grade bands: K2, 3-5, 6-8, and 9-12. Performance indicators provide additional ideas that support the standards. Within the standards, there are two strands, general music and performance music. This set of academic standards provides a foundational framework that identifies what students should know and be able to do in music. Last year, the K-8 music teams completed phase 1 of the curriculum improvement process, desired results. The guiding questions for phase 1 are listed on the slide. Tonight, we're going to focus on an outcome for the third question, the identification of priority standards. This slide shows the criteria that we use to prioritize standards. We have used this collaborative process for all of our curricular areas for a number of years. In grade level teams, teachers identify priority standards through in-depth discussions using the specific selection criteria. This spreadsheet shows, one more slide, please. This spreadsheet shows the process that committee members use to identify priority standards. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay, and Lindsay is going to share a few of the priority standards at the elementary level.
Okay. If you could go on to the next slide, please. So our music team, we found three of the priority standards, or three of the standards to be priority standards for our team. The first one is create. And so students at Hudson Prairie created their own raps using 4-beat rhythm patterns. Following the composition, they added their own words and performed that for the class. At Willow River, they're showing this standard through demonstrating their knowledge of half notes through centers. The students played rhythm tic-tac-toe, rhythm go fish, half note fishing, as well as 2 composition stations where they created short patterns and transferred them to instruments. Our next standard is perform. At Rivercrest, the students demonstrated this through playing boomwhackers. Boomwhackers reinforce music literacy by helping students learn to track and follow along with the music, as well as supporting musical concepts such as step, leap, skip, and the musical alphabet. At North Hudson, third graders learned and analyzed the rhythms of hot cross buns. The students learned to play the patterns on the rhythm sticks, and then they learned the melody on the xylophone and then put it all together and perform that with the class. Our third standard is respond. The first graders at EP Rock used rhythms they learned in music to help them explore In the Hall of the Mountain King by Edvard Grieg. Students took turns being the leader, and then the rest of the class clapped the patterns of the song. The third graders at Holton learned about 16th notes through the folk song Tidy-O. Students used body percussion to demonstrate the rhythms, and then they learned the melody to the song. Finally, the students played the instruments to represent the different rhythms within the song. And that's how we have been showing our priority standards so far this year.
Now we'll move on to the middle school.
All right. My name is Erin Marin. I'm the middle school choir teacher. So we have taken time to discuss the priority standards for each of the band, choir, and orchestra disciplines. Some of these standards overlap, and some have been taken and decided to be a priority for band, for example, and not for choir. They're just such different animals that a lot of them do overlap because they are all performance-based classes. However, some don't have instruments like choir, others like orchestra do. So we have create, and perform, respond, and connect. The one that we all overwhelmingly decided was our priority standard was in the performance-based category, which makes sense because we are a performance-based class and discipline. So rehearse and demonstrate the ability to sing or play expressively on pitch and rhythm and with proper technique and maintaining a steady beat. Also perform collaboratively as part of an ensemble, demonstrating well-developed ensemble skills. We'll have a few photos here in the next few slides about some collaboration and then performance opportunities for our students. This is just some photos from the past couple years, or last year, I believe, mostly from last year. the challenge of navigating through a pandemic and having a wind instrument is just as a challenge. And so these are some photos from some of those times you can see with the kids still playing, and then some quotes from some students, current middle school students that you can take a moment to read. And then this is some photos from the Hudson Choir Department from middle school. The top right is a photo from last year. This was a photo from one of the, I believe this is 6th grade choir concert that we did in the spring in the gym. And then a few students in the lower left corner were just selected this last week or 2 weekends ago now to perform at the middle level all-state or honor choir in Madison, Wisconsin. And then obviously we've got upcoming events there for a busy season for the music department in general.
And very similar things for orchestra as well. We are thrilled to be back to our main love of live performances and starting our rockestra again, our HMS Rock Orchestra Ensemble. But yeah, just a wonderful picture up at the top there. The choir and orchestra for 8th grade performed a collaborative piece for Veterans Day this Thursday. And it was just a wonderful experience.
Okay, any questions from board members?
Rockestra? Is that like trademarked or do you have? You should trademark that. That's good stuff. It's nice to see the live performances coming back. It's been quite a joy. So I'm glad that you guys are able to enjoy that as well. And the kids are able to take it on. So thanks for doing what you guys do. We have a tremendous program here.
Mr. President?
Yes.
And I would say I have to think that while COVID was really hard for all teachers, I cannot imagine doing what you do with kids in the classroom, kids remote. So thank you for continuing to try to keep some sort of music program going when we weren't able to be live and in person. Really appreciate that because I know that was a big lift. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your reports. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're just going in order.
Actually, why don't I just save the COVID operational update till the end? So why don't we go and have Aaron talk about the equity audit update?
Okay. So looking forward to revisiting the equity conversation tonight. So tonight I'll be sharing some information on existing work within our district and initiatives related to our student. And I really wanted to frame this presentation and the conversation around our student pillar, which is creating a supportive and inclusive learning environment that provides equitable access so all students can fully participate in their personal and academic success. So talking about things that we've been working on, and then we'll be talking about just next steps and things that we'll be focusing on in the future as well. Again, focusing on that student pillar, the district mission, vision, and values really provides the direction and aspiration for all of the work that we do as a district. So just kind of wanted to frame this conversation around all of those things too. And if we're really living our mission and values coupled with a commitment to students, you can go to the next slide, Tim, then we're moving towards equity for all students. So that mission, values, and commitment to our students, plus our actions that we've been working on and will continue to take, is how we're going to achieve moving towards equity for all students. The Wisconsin Department of Education defines educational equity to mean that every student has access to the resources and educational rigor they need at the right moment in time in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, ability, sexual orientation, family background, and income. And so we know that equity is not a standalone initiative. that it's really about looking at all of our practices, student experiences to create an environment that meets the needs of all of our students and families. So the focus is really on student experience through access to high quality instruction, responsive and inclusive services to meet the needs of all students. So just to kind of revisit where we were when the equity audit presentation happened quite a few weeks ago now, looking at the recommendations, and really the essential question when we're looking at these recommendations is, how do we take those recommendations to strengthen or redesign structures within our district to create an environment where all students achieve, feel a sense of belonging, and value the diversity within our community? So just wanted to draw your attention back to those, and we'll kind of walk through some of those as we talk about the work that we've done so far here. So just to review and just kind of bring to light some of our existing practices and initiatives, we'll talk a little bit about the curriculum improvement process, our work around universal design for learning, our refocus on professional learning communities, and student connectedness, belonging, mental health, and social emotional learning, strategic use of data for system improvement, inclusive practices, and culturally responsive systems training. So if you want to move to the next slide, we'll start kind of talking through all of these things. So the curriculum improvement process is a cycle of curricular review that includes 6 phases. So it's a really in-depth process that teams walk through in terms of our curriculum review. Wanted to point out the language that we're using in terms of that the steps that we're walking through when we're looking at curriculum resources, in making sure that they're accessible, so that students of varying ability and experience levels can meaningfully participate, that materials are able to be differentiated, that they reflect a variety of ways to individualize instruction, provide content to support all of our learners within the classroom, making sure that our resources and materials have diverse perspectives, and that they present in a variety of factual points of view and experiences. And then looking at representation, so looking at providing windows or seeing the experiences of others, mirrors, seeing oneself, and doors, an opportunity to immerse oneself in another's lived experience, what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. And that materials portray people from a diverse range of cultural and ethnic backgrounds. So that's something that's been clearly articulated and infused into our curriculum improvement process.
Sorry, we just heard from music about they're starting, right? They're in phase 1 of the curriculum review process. So which stage of that process would it be when they would be looking at music and like through that lens?
Good question.
So it's actually embedded in all, but primarily phase 3 when you get into resource selection. So you'll already do some of that when you're prioritizing standards and establishing essential questions and enduring understandings. But it's really when you get into the resource selection and the development of learning experiences that you'd really drive that home.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Along with the curriculum improvement process and that focus on access to high quality instruction, we're doing a lot of work around universal design for learning, which is really a way of designing instruction from the beginning to remove barriers for a variety of different reasons for a variety of learners. So that we're providing that the multiple access points for students in instruction within their classroom. That's something that our Rigor Teamwork Inclusion team has been working on for a couple of years now, and at a point where we're starting to kind of branch that out more systematically throughout all of our schools. Professional learning communities is something that we've had in existence for years here, and this year is a really intentional refocus on what that looks like. We're in a really great spot to refocus on that coming out of COVID, where teachers had to be sort of lockstep in their planning so that, kids could kind of go in and out of instruction. Where we're really focusing this year is with that universal design for learning framework and lens, really infusing student services staff in with grade level and department level planning so that we're planning from the get-go for a variety of student needs. Right. Student connectedness and belonging are, again, extremely important components of our equity work, as you heard during a different recent board report. Social emotional learning allows a focus on how we're all interconnected, valuing differences and similarities, and building the skills all students need to succeed in academics and social settings. As you heard in a previous board report, we're paying attention to our data related to student connectedness through our student engagement survey, through a variety of ways, looking at different subgroups and how we increase that connectedness to school. The opportunity for authentic student voice within our systems was really reinforced in our equity audit. We've had some successes with various student participation on committees. Student representatives on our mental health advisory have provided such meaningful insights into the experiences and the needs of adolescents. And last year, our high school administration launched a student voice initiative to provide opportunity for conversation between groups of individuals and administration, just regarding concerns around climate and those sorts of things. And so there are plans to continue those conversations this year too. Trauma sensitive schools is something we've been working on for the past 6 or 7 years within our district. And it's really at its core, trauma sensitive school is a place where all students feel safe and valued. And so that's a continued focus in all of our schools. In terms of student support services, we've been continuing to use our student data to improve supports in the following areas, really looking at our discipline practices related to different groups of students and how we can be more proactive in responding to behavior. Restorative practices is one of the ways that we're starting to look at that a little bit differently in terms of the purpose of discipline. Is to really build skills of students and help address needs. Again, looking at intervention services and special education in that same light as well. And then our multi-level systems of support, making sure that the modifications, accommodations, or interventions ensure all students have access to the tools they need for learning and are successful within all of our school environments. Inclusive practices is really about strengthening systems and practices, again, to meet the needs of students within classrooms and all environments. We've been paying a lot of attention through our district scorecard over the last few years about participation and representation in all of our school district programs and activities. Our Rigor Teamwork Inclusion team has done a lot of work in not only UDL and instructional strategies, but really about collective ownership of all of our students and how we embed that into that multi-level system of support. And then culturally responsive systems training is something we did. You can actually move to the next slide. This was a training we did back in 2019 in partnership with the Wisconsin RTI Center. And it was a big team, probably 40 staff members, teacher leaders within schools, and administrators, and really looking at the experiences of our students, what our data is telling us, and then led to some good conversation about just questions we had or further investigation. So that was canceled due to COVID, but looking forward to picking that back up when they're back up and running. So in terms of next steps, I think, one of the things that the equity audit showed us was that it's important to look at our data the way that we have been in making sure that we have appropriate representation within all of our programs. It reinforced that we need to increase the capacity of our system to meet the needs of learners in classrooms and in all schools. And so when we're particularly focusing on special education, for example, how can we make sure that we're educating students in that true least restrictive environment and talking about strategies to move away from some of our more exclusionary practices. professional development and modeling of strengths-based language. We'll talk about that more specifically in an upcoming slide. And then again, that continued culturally responsive systems professional development. So student-centered and strengths-based thinking and language was one of the things that they discussed in our equity audit. And it's really about the language that school staff use when we're talking about students and families, and recognizing the need to use that strengths-based language so that we're not inadvertently lowering expectations or communicating a potential stereotype. And so it's important that our staff just have some professional development around it, because it's never ill-intentioned, but something that we need to be paying more attention to. And then just the district policies supporting equity, the policy practices supporting equity, sorry. The policy review cycle that was put into place in 2016 has allowed us from a more global sense to apply an equity lens to the work that we're doing in our policy revisions. And I think a good example of that is our non-discrimination policy work that we've done. And I know in all different areas too. And then just thinking about aligning human resources, that as we start to dig in more to this equity work and just thinking about how we align our staff to meet the needs of our students, that will be important ongoing conversations. And then obviously from a funding perspective, leveraging district resources to make sure that we're funding our priority areas for our students. So again, just wanted to draw your attention at the end of this presentation about, where we started and what the recommendations from that equity audit were, and that we're really focusing on those and paying attention, along with the work that we've already done and reinforcing those things. Questions for me?
Molly.
Thank you. I am really excited about the stuff that you guys have done, and I hope lots of people are. One of the things I really appreciate is moving away from the special ed exclusionary practices, and just from personal knowledge, how detrimental that can be, no matter where your child is on the educational spectrum. So I appreciate that. One question I had was, when you mentioned professional development, is that like a continuing ed type of thing? And is it for all staff? What does that look like?
That's a great question. And it depends on what type of professional development it is and what is the most meaningful way to deliver that. And often that is, depending on the topic, starting with a core group and really having that core group understand at a higher level so that we're able to kind of embed it in all 8 of our schools. And it needs to be an ongoing conversation, right? A one and done professional development doesn't always give us the outcome that we're looking for. Does that make sense?
See, yes, it does. I was just thinking a little bit about, people are, they have the gifts of being able to understand, communicate, and be able to implement changes. Mm-hmm. How about a teacher who maybe that isn't their innate gift? They're an excellent teacher, but maybe it might be a little more difficult. Do you do like a mentoring where it's, where it's a difficult situation, you don't know what to say? Mm-hmm. The person is like, I don't know how to handle this. So do they have a mentor in that situation?
They do. And Andrea can speak a little bit to this too, but all of our new staff receive a mentor who walks through, different things. And that's the kind of their go-to person if they have something challenging they need to walk through. I would say that our PLC teams are also another avenue to, explore and have those conversations. Our instructional coaches are another team that we've had a lot of conversations specifically about our equity audit and having them kind of talk through each one of these things so that they really understand it, because they're also another huge go-to and a leadership team that we rely on to sort of help get information out that way.
I would say a common resource is the principal in the building. So especially with our newer staff, they would often reach out to principals to, throw ideas out, how do I process through particularly difficult situations? And I think principals are a regular resource there. For newer teachers, I think less than 5 years of experience, they get a mentor. For people that are more veteran coming into the system, they get a building orientation buddy, a Bob. So we try to provide a Bob, yes. Different opportunities in different ways, depending upon their needs.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. I feel so strongly that kids belong in classrooms. They belong with their peers. Out in the hall doesn't work. Out in an excluded classroom doesn't work. You're missing so much stuff. So I so appreciate what you've done. It's excellent. Thanks.
Any other questions regarding the equity audit update?
Maybe just a statement. I mean, I know it's continued work in process and you guys are continuing to kind of work through this. So, I just appreciate you continuing to kind of challenge, the way that you've been doing things and your current thought processes. So I would say just continue to, find ways to, challenge the norm, right? I mean, and find ways to continue to grow from where from the data that we receive. So, appreciate the update today and, look forward to continued updates as we move forward.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Yes, Heather.
So, can you talk just a little bit, Aaron, about ways that if there are parents or community members who they're really engaged in this and are wondering where do I plug in? I mean, I know we have advisory committees in some areas, the folks who have said, okay, we did the equity audit. Now what's the plan? And they want to be more actively involved. Are there ways that are the best ways for them to be sharing feedback or kind of helping to inform our path as we move forward?
Yep. I think the advisory councils that you had mentioned are a great way for people to plug in. I know that Teaching and Learning has added a few new additional members who are very interested in this work. So that's, I think, important to be plugged into that way. I think family engagement is another important thing to be plugged into too. Attending our district, initiatives and events, I think would be a really great thing. And then just being involved in your child's school, right?
Yes, Kate.
So I know there were some, we looked at the recommendations and as a community kind of came up with what's important to Hudson. What would you say is the biggest effort or change that we might see following this?
I think it's a focus on that access to high quality instruction for all students. And so those inclusive practices, and then the how we're going about teaching all students within classrooms and helping teachers understand and, increase the capacity of that. Teachers understand how to do that. It's just, increasing the capacity of the system.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, Aaron, good job, by the way, in doing this and following up. And I have a couple questions I probably should have warned you I was going to shoot them your way, but it was in the preparation for this meeting, over the weekend in looking at, we got this PowerPoint presentation in our last work session as well, and you've already gotten some feedback from board members. But it was around that time that I think each of us got an anonymous inquiry that was several pages long, and it was obviously from someone who, has a lot of fear when it comes to the equity audit. Certainly didn't understand what the equity audit, the purpose of it was. But just from your standpoint, do you see that this equity audit was a waste of money? And B, do you see good things coming out of it or bad things? I mean, I think people are fearful that we're going to be changing too much too fast in this district.
I think if we go back to our student pillar, I think that's where we focus, and we have to be paying attention to what is the data of all students telling us, and how do we think through that in order to build a better system, right? Where all students feel safe and valued and are learning at high levels. So I think the information was valuable. I think it has opened up some really great conversations in how we move forward.
Well, we got some questions about, how much it costs, which we've already, that is public information, but it works out to be about $7 per student in our district. And if we can improve the experiences of all students, and not just giving a lip service, but actually improve, I would say that that's a money well worth spent. And I was just wondering, when can we expect like a progress report on how we're doing and next steps? Would it be, closer to April?
Yeah, I think that would make sense. I would think we would have some additional data we could share in terms of what our initiatives are looking at and where we're at.
Okay, very good. All right, anyone else have any comments? Yeah, Heather?
Maybe just as a follow-up on that, my sense is that one of the things that's hard about this is there is data that we can look at, right, around gaps. So there's kind of that quantitative data, and then there's the qualitative data that's the softer side of the experiences of some of these students, students with special needs. So it would be nice if we could figure out a way to be presenting both kinds of data as a way to kind of chart our progress on some of these issues, and maybe bring more student voice to some of these reports, so that we are getting a better sense from students and parents about how the changes that are being made, or the trainings that are being provided, or the initiatives that are being implemented, what kind of an impact they're having from a quantitative standpoint as a qualitative standpoint as well. So maybe if that's something, I don't know what that might look like exactly, but that might be an interesting way to be reporting, to be sharing both stories and data as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, thank you for your work and your report, Erin, and
thank you.
Look forward to seeing the progress. Nick, which one do you want to go to next?
We'll have Andrea do her staff recognition program kickoff.
Okay. Cheers for peers. Excited about this new, a little too enthusiastic with that, but excited about this opportunity because I think it's an area in the district we haven't done a great job up to this point. I don't think we've celebrated, recognized staff as consistently, as regularly as I think we should, and that we can really excel in this new area. So this is our new initiative. So we just released it this afternoon to staff, and we already have 28 submissions. So I'm really excited. So November, the idea is to focus on gratitude and who do you nominate as someone who exemplifies gratitude as a coworker, and then we'll pick somehow, don't know yet how, but we'll pick 10 of the entries, and then they'll receive a nice gift from the district and also be recognized by the school board. Working on that, we also asked the question of whether they want it to be kept anonymous or not. In terms of the nominator and the nominee. And so we're working through some of those pieces, but instead of like getting all the nuances figured out, I wanted to leap into it a bit and start the celebration, start the recognition. And just reading some of the 28 already entries, awesome things. And just the level of gratitude for each other is really awesome to hear. And I think it's just affirming after the heck of a year we've had, right? And with COVID, that I think it's a perfect opportunity to launch a new positive initiative. And I also love that it gets more of them in front of you guys too. So you can hear the stories. They're going to be getting a board certificate of recognition as well, the 10 winners. And then hopefully it just keeps building. And I think a really good problem would be is if we have lots of nominees all the time and we have to figure out how to get them more prizes. So I'm just excited and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, board members?
Mr. President?
Yes, Carrie.
You said you don't know how you'll be selecting so you don't know if it'll be a random or voted on, and if it's voted on, by whom?
Right. I think I suggested cabinet having some decision making, and I don't think they're real eager to take that on.
Sounds like a board committee.
Yeah. I don't know, because I look back at like the wellness missions where we had the contest for like the moving images or inspiring images, and I ultimately couldn't decide because there's so many positive ones. So at the same time, I know we have to have some limits around it. So whether it's a random drawing or if 10 particularly stand out, we would build a rubric. We would have some criteria, but then there's also multiple opportunities throughout the year, since it's a monthly activity, that additional nominations can occur too. So we're hopeful to keep hitting as many people as we can with the positivity. So.
Heather?
Well, I love that it's yes recognition and fun. I think we're all reading about, with the Great Resignation, how
Yes.
companies are stepping up and really trying to do more to make it fun, to make people feel rewarded. And so I think this is a good direction for a whole lot of reasons. So thank you for the energy you're putting into this new initiative.
And I love the fact that, the focus is on gratitude, particularly in the month of Thanksgiving. So I think that's a great place to start.
And we're actually linking, each month is going to have one of the 7 mindsets of our new SEL curriculum. And so finding a way to kind of weave things together, I think is just another fun opportunity to synthesize student services, HR, all the different departments, and do it together.
Okay. Thank you very much for that program, and look forward to seeing what you're going to be bringing forward in future months. And then Nick gets to bring us the cheery news on COVID-19 operational update.
It's cheery. It's cheery stuff. A couple things on the case counts. We've had kind of an uptick in cases the last couple of weeks. We had, quite a few over the weekend, picked up 17 cases over the weekend, kind of scattered throughout all the buildings. We're up to about 298 cases in the district since the start of the school year. So we're just trying to keep an eye on things. Knock on wood, they've been pretty, we've gotten to the point, we haven't had hospitalizations or deaths or things along those lines. So I think that's a good situation.
No, that 298 number, that's just students, or is that students and staff?
That is students and staff. Of the 298, about 30 of them, I think, are staff members. So about 10% are staff since basically the start of the school year. And the vast majority of them have been vaccinated. But it's been, the vaccine's not going to guarantee 100% you're not going to get it. The goal of the vaccine is to, if you do get it, you have a much milder response than if you didn't have the vaccine. And I think it's proved pretty well for us. Hudson Prairie's had quite a few cases as far as elementaries, 41 cases this year. I don't think they had 41 cases all year last year combined. So it's really kind of moved up. We are, St. Croix County reached out for a vaccination clinic now that it's been approved for 5 to 11-year-olds. We told them that they could do a vaccination clinic. More than happy to help them use our space. They're going to use the high school site on November 17th. And then the follow-up is December 8th. It's from 4 to 7. So it's after the school day. The high school site works the best because we have plenty of parking. Kids are done early on Wednesdays. And it's totally voluntary. So if parents want to bring their children in to have them vaccinated, great. If they don't, that's fine too. So there's not going to be, contrary to what's out there on social media, we are not going around and into buildings and things like that. It is purely optional, and it's parents have to bring their kids in. It is, however, only for 5 to 11-year-olds, because although it's the same vaccine, it's a different dosage. And so they would not be able to give anybody that would be 12 or older the vaccine at that clinic. So
November 17 and December 8th.
Yep. November 17th is first dose. December 8th is the second dose of the vaccine. Yep.
Nick, are there any geographic restrictions on who can come to that
Nope.
vaccine clinic?
No geographic restrictions. We are hosting one, and Richmond in their school district is hosting. We're trying to cover the vast majority of the county. We're the two most populous areas in the county. So this is put on by St. Croix County. Other than them using our space, that's about it. And they did this clinic. We did a vaccine clinic. Was it April, Tracy? I think April or May last year for 12 and older. And so it goes pretty slick. They handle everything. They handle all the nursing, the shots, the logistics, the forms. The only thing we do is we push out the information that if people want to do it, they can. If they don't want to, they can just disregard the email. So I don't know, Tracy, if you had anything you want to add on that.
I was just going to add, it is St. Croix County residents.
Yep.
When you're talking geographics.
So I guess there is a small stipulation. Yes. Go ahead, Carrie.
And is that just walk-in or are appointments required?
I think they do both, don't they? We're gonna be able to send out the information at a time, but people that maybe don't live in our school district would still be able to walk in.
The last time public health put together a sign up so that people who wanted to sign up ahead of time, though there were plenty of walk-ins as well.
Mm-hmm. So by signing up ahead of time, I think you guarantee a spot, but there's opportunities. And I think it's changed a little bit back when they were originally given the vaccine. If you remember, everything was, kept at a super cold temperature. And now they've figured out that they don't have to keep it quite so cold, so they can have more thought out and things along those lines. So, but really, it's a public health initiative. We're more than happy to help them out with it and continuing to push through that. Couple other things I wanted to talk about: case percentages. We've been kind of comparing area school districts and kind of where their percentages are since the start of the school year, like what percentage of their kids have tested positive for COVID. And, it's been kind of interesting. I actually talked to Heather about this earlier today. It's when you look at districts that are mask required versus mask recommended or optional, they're all falling within about that 4 to 5% of their population going into November have tested positive for COVID. And there's one outlier, which is Elk Mound. They've had almost 10% of their population test positive since November, or since the first day of school by November 2nd. And so, we're kind of looking at some of this data, also looking at what is that. It really kind of matches up with what's happening in people's communities. I know Elk Mound, and I think that's not Dunn County. Is that Eau Claire or Chippewa County? I'm drawing a blank.
It's near the border of Dunn and Eau Claire.
Yeah. They were about the time they were having big spikes. I know St. Croix Central had a pretty big spike at their middle school about a week and a half ago, where they did end up having to go virtual. They had about 15 staff members and 30 or 40 kids out, I think, in a matter of a day or two, all testing positive. And so it just makes it impossible to staff buildings. And I think that's the thing we're always trying to keep an eye on with subs and things along those lines. But really what I want to kind of bring up to discuss at the board a little bit is, one of the things that we have talked about originally when we talked about the mask matrix or looking at masking was, because not all the children in our district are eligible for a vaccine. That's why we put the mask matrix into place to try to work through some of that. But now that the 5 to 11-year-olds are now they have the EAU, does the board want to look at, at some point, do we move to keeping an eye on the numbers, but maybe not doing a weekly mass matrix like we've done in the past? And this is something similar to, if you remember back just after spring break, we moved away from the school closure matrix and said, we're going to still monitor things, but however, we're not going to continue to post a matrix. And so I just thought I would ask if there's any comments, questions. One of the things that I would tell you is that we do know that the vaccine takes 3 weeks apart. So you have at least 3 weeks worth of vaccine, and then you have 2 weeks after the second dose is when kids are would be considered, I think, vaccinated, inoculated, however you want to put it. So if you looked at 5 weeks, and today is kind of roughly one of the first days, I think Friday was the first day kids could get it, but I know that Hudson Physicians was giving the shots today. I'm not sure
where else they were giving them, and I'm not sure how many they were giving. If they had a lot of people asking for them, I know St. Croix County was hoping to do about 600 doses this week, not including our vaccine clinics. If we did that 5 weeks from today is December 13th. Would be the earliest that somebody that got vaccinated today would be considered by the health officials as being technically vaccinated. So I don't know what people's thoughts are, discussion, questions.
Kate?
I thought maybe we could kind of break it apart. I'm looking at the high school. I made a graph because I was trying to see in my head where numbers are going. And so they're consistently going down. I know there was an uptick, but it's gone from like high to extreme, way, way, way lower, especially in the high school. And those kids have the ability to be vaccinated. So I wanted to make a motion to end the mask matrix at the high school initially, and then to end the mask matrix on the 13th for the rest of the kids who have that ability to be vaccinated.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, this is more of a discussion because there's no motions that could be made during superintendent reports.
Okay.
So,
Well,
but go ahead.
Well, I think if we were to go with this, to me, I would think that we would want to give it not every parent who wanted their kids vaccinated was going to be able to get them an appointment on the first day that Hudson Physicians was giving vaccinations. So the first kids who got appointments would be considered vaccinated on December, whatever that is, 13th or whatever. And I think it would, if we go that route, I think it would be reasonable to think, and let's assume that we need to give a week or so for everyone to get in and get those first shots. I mean, I think that to not necessarily go from the day of the first vaccination, but to think about it that way, maybe.
Anyone else? How do people feel about, scheduling some kind of horizon for sunsetting the mask matrix?
Personally, I'm okay with it. I think, like with anything we've seen with this pandemic, and you just never know what's going to come 2, 3, 4 months down the road. So I think just having something there has been helpful for us as a guide, and I'm for progressing forward with it, but just making sure that, we recognize that we have no idea where this thing's going to go. So we just need to make sure that we're, as a board, communicating regularly like we do. And, should we see something turn back the other way, that we're open to the steps that we need to take in order to make sure we're, keeping our kids and staff safe.
Bruce or Bob?
I'd agree with Bruce and what others have said so far. I think some people have said, well, can you make adjustments to the numbers in the schools? And it just seems like, so while still transparent, more honest is just looking at it and saying, we haven't seen, big jumps in the high school. It's been six weeks or without a mask required. I think people would like to see it kind of come to an end. And of course, watch the numbers. You mentioned about St. Croix Central, that's frightening. And again, if we don't have staff healthy, we're going to think that we might have to go virtual again is not something I want to get to. So obviously keep an eye on it. But I think the community and people want to see us kind of put an end to the matrix. I would be in favor of, the elementary after Christmas break or whatever we were discussing, as long as there's a, enough couple weeks for people to get their kids vaccinated. I think that's reasonable.
Well, and just thinking out loud, I can see where some people might question the wisdom of, if you're going to end the mask tracking, why would you do it right when people just get back from the holiday? Like, why wouldn't you give it to, so something to think about. Like, instead of saying January 1, do we say, yep, we're going to continue to monitor for that week or two after the holidays, and assuming we don't see any, I don't know, something to think about. I think what's challenging is, I think I just read that the CDC is saying that an outbreak is 3.5 times more likely in a school that doesn't have masks than a school that does. And it's kind of like, okay, but what's what's the N? You know, is the N a 0.5% likely that a school would have a mandate, which means would have an outbreak, which means that if you don't wear masks, then you're up to 1.5. You know, I mean, it's hard to kind of what's the.
I think you're
when we're
right.
weighing against other things that we do every day that we know there's some risk. I mean, so that's what's hard is 3.5 sounds like a really big number, but 3.5 of what?
Of what? I mean, so it
Right.
might be
Yeah.
that schools with masks have a 1% chance of having an outbreak, and schools without mask have a 3.5% chance of an outbreak. And I think that's where you have to be careful, at least when looking at the data and reading some of the stuff, is really making sure you're putting context in some of these things and what we're looking at. You know, I think as we, you know, why do it either at winter break or before? You know, I think the real driver on this is not necessarily people gathering or things like that. It would be the eligibility of vaccination. And we do know that not everybody's going to get the vaccine. We know in St. Croix County, only 64%, or no, not even that. I think in our school district, 64% of all people have gotten the vaccine at this point. And, you know, but it's also, if there's going to be a group of folks that are never going to get the vaccine, are we going to stay in mass forever because there's a group of folks that are never going to get the vaccine? I don't know how reasonable that seems. And, you know, I think, you know, it could be as simple as saying, okay, hey, at the elementaries, you're going to keep the mask matrix in place, you know, through, you know, basically, if you say a week, if you give people a week, you know, that basically is the 20th of December. So then you might as well just say, hey, when we come back from winter break, we won't have a mask matrix any longer for the elementaries. If you feel comfortable, we can say, you know, at the secondary level, we've had, you know, it's actually been, knock on wood, you know, pretty good. You know, we can say we can sunset it early because they do have the eligibility and they have had the opportunity to get vaccines. And that could be a big reason why we're seeing the lower numbers, especially at the high school and at the middle school for the most part. I mean, it's something we can do. It wasn't an action item tonight, but it's really just trying to gauge the interest. And, you know, if there's interest in this, then really it's going to be an opportunity for us to start having a conversation and saying, what does that look like? How do we wind it down? Go ahead.
I just had a couple comments, questions. I would like to know, what are the numbers at the high school over time? Where are we at with that? That's the first.
So last week we had a total of 5 cases. The week before, 9 cases. The week before that, 6 cases. 4 cases. But the week before that, 10. I mean, our high was back in September when we hit 21 cases in a week. So I think Bob said, I mean, we haven't been in mass since the week of the 1st of October. So it's been 5 or 6 weeks at the high school. You know, it doesn't mean we couldn't have a week where we have more cases. I mean, but I think that's the one of the things that I think I had a conversation even today with Heather is, what is going to be our measure long-term in the future? Because there's a strong possibility we could be considered a high transmission state based on the CDC standards for several years to come, just because it doesn't take very many cases to be considered a high transmission rate. And so what does that look like? And, you know, having the threshold of everybody in our buildings that wants a vaccination is eligible, I think is about as clear of a threshold as we could have, because after that, I'm not sure really what the big difference maker. It could come years before we start to see a lower amount of COVID. I don't know.
I agree. I think we're going to have this problem where it's just going to be ongoing, and we'll have to deal with it and as needed. And I agree with Bruce that, you know, you always have to have that in your back pocket. If there is an outbreak, you know, of course, you're going to have to start wearing masks again. And I would support what Kate is saying, would support that. And also that probably waiting till Christmas break on kids to give them a chance. And also I would think, you know, the way our world works when my kids were in school is a lot of stuff happens over Christmas break that isn't really party related. It's getting stuff done that you have to get done. So perhaps people will do that. The other comment is there a way to do a vaccine booster clinic? Because I think, you know, I know people have gone in who qualify and have had a regular doctor's appointment, and they have said, no, you don't qualify. well, you do qualify. And meanwhile, you can go to Walgreens. So it's not as a seamless as a process. And just from my personal perspective, my mother-in-law just had breakthrough COVID and we didn't think she was going to survive. They said she'll not make it through the day. So that's again why we wear a mask. And I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of wearing it. I got a zit. It's like I'm too old to have that. But the reason I wear it is because people I love are in danger. And I would be very sad if someone old that I care about who is not on their way out and who is still worthwhile should leave us before their time. So, of course, yes, we can't do this forever, but I think we have to be really careful about what we do. So I support you, Kate. And high five. So that's what I have to say.
So one of the things I could do is, from what I'm hearing you say is maybe at the September or the November 22nd meeting, I think that's coming up in 2 weeks. I could put we could put an action item on the agenda that would basically say, at that point, if the board accepts it, the high school, middle school would go kind of mask recommended optional, unless we see something that just kind of blows us out of the water, kind of similar to what we did at the end of last year. And then starting basically, we come back from winter break, the elementaries will have had enough time to be vaccinated, and they would go to mask recommended / optional at that point. But that still gives us, another week or two of data before we head in to that decision. And I think if things continue to trend in this direction, I think we'll be in a pretty good spot. And and again, we don't want to throw caution to the wind, but we're trying to find somewhat of a balance. I think going mask recommended is not versus mandatory is not we're not going to be like the first district that's ever done that. So, I mean, it's not like we're the test case. I remember, last year when we were talking about going to school and everybody thought we should be virtual, there was a lot of pressure then. At this point, I don't think it's quite the same thing. So, I think if that's something that people are comfortable with, I can kind of draw that up. And then we would probably also at that time probably start to change our communication a little bit. If you remember at the end of last year, instead of sending the building-wide letters, we started to send classroom letters. But we still keep the totals. We can still keep the totals on the website, keep those updated every day, so people have access to that. But maybe we would also probably recommend at the elementaries, once we come back from winter break, that we go to classroom letters the way we handle strep throat, influenza, other communicable diseases in classrooms versus building-wide letters, unless there's a need. But we'll start to kind of adjust some of our communication strategies as we move forward.
When does winter break start?
I believe it's the 23rd.
Okay.
It's a Thursday, I believe. The calendar chief sitting next to you. Do you happen to know?
Get up right now.
22nd? Okay.
Oh, okay.
And Nick, as far as like events, spring break or whatever, in the past, that we've really not seen, with the sports and people in the gym and big crowds, we haven't really seen any outbreaks in our district that could be tied directly to.
Well, I mean, it really depends on what you determine as an outbreak. I mean, the CDC is basically more than one case in any one environment. They consider that an outbreak. I mean, now the average person, I would say, would probably say that's probably not an outbreak if you happen to have 2 cases out of 150 people. Yeah. So it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. But no, we have not seen, we didn't come back from spring break and see a huge spike. We had homecoming this year, unmasked homecoming, 900 kids in the gym or in the commons area dancing, having a good time. We didn't see a huge spike after that. I think, we'll continue to monitor. I think right now, the reason we're seeing more cases at the elementary level than anything is because it's the last group that's not vaccinated. Not that everybody's vaccinated at the secondary level, but there are more people vaccinated, and we had a lot more cases at the secondary level last year. So if you look at kind of the natural immunity piece plus the vaccinated immunity piece, we're starting to get to a pretty high level when you start to talk about the older kids. So, but it doesn't mean it can't happen, and I don't want to jinx us, but for the most part, it's we've been pretty good with large events. All right. Well, I will have that ready to go for the 22nd, and we'll get that going. So.
All right, moving on then to action items. First up is the consent agenda items with the expenditures pursuant to the language in your agenda.
Mr. President, I move approval of the consent items and that the chief financial and operations officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $1,336,019.12.
All right, motion by Heather, second by Carrie. Calls for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I may, just real briefly, I just want to announce that Sarah Jamison, you just approved her as my new assistant director of HR. So she's been with the district as counselor at the high school for 22 years and wants a new challenge, and I'm ready to have her. So Holly Butler went to be the HR director in Richmond. Super happy for her. But I'm also excited for the new opportunity for Sarah. So just wanted to mention that briefly.
I know we usually have to stop the consent agenda for changes in HR, so that's kind of a regular thing. So
Yeah, it happens so often. So.
Oh, that's great.
All right. Okay, next up, serious agenda item is to select the WASB delegate and alternate delegate for state convention. And Tim, did you get the short sticks ready? Short straws? No? Okay, so this is something that every year we do.
Sought after.
Luckily, I mean, we didn't do it really much last year. Bob, what was the issue? Was it virtually done or?
Bob did it virtually.
No.
You did it?
I was in person. Rob was down.
No, yeah, but in person would have been from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then, yeah.
Yeah. That's,
So just, first of all, all seven of us are registered for. the
yes,
state
all seven are
convention.
attending.
So, but sticking with tradition,
Yeah.
Well-
Okay. Well, I don't know, Heather, have you ever done it? Yes. Were you delegate? Okay.
yeah, so,
Has anybody not done it? Oh, no, that's part of the mystery.
yeah. No. It basically, okay, first of all, so every district is encouraged to put forward resolutions. In my 9 years, I think we've put forward one or two. One of them would have been the penny tax that we have, got Shannon Zimmerman to be a champion of that now. And so we've done that. River Falls School District, I think they do like 3 or 4 a year or something. But so you can do these, they're kind of policy issues. There's a whole committee that screens these, but our deadline for submitting one is already passed for this year. So those are in the process of being screened, because you can imagine with 400 school districts, there's going to be school boards that have similar ideas. We should be doing X and we need to push the legislature to do Y. Those are basically what the resolutions are. They're non-binding policy issues, but still, there's been examples of how they've actually gone into law and they've made a change in policy in the state. So we get, I don't know, how many is it, Nick? I don't know. It can be upwards of 100 of those resolutions, right?
Yeah, I think they kind of whittle them down even prior to the delegate assembly. So then essentially it's the first day of the convention. Bob, chime in at any point because you're the most recent one. All the delegates across the school districts, they get into a room, they go up, they present the resolution, which is basically they're trying to create the legislative platform for WASB. And I think it's a voice vote, or is it an email vote or something?
They've got some little button thing.
Oh, a little button thing. Yeah,
it's all high tech.
And honestly, you're given all the items first before you even go, and we kind of decide as a board what we support and what we don't. So it's not like you have to decide for yourself. Or
we usually do it at the I think it's ready at the December work session.
Usually December work session or
the January action meeting. But
the old part isn't intimidating. That the good thing that I would tell Molly and Kate is that I'm not going to try and sound as excited as Andrea is on her Cheers for Peers, but I can't be that Andrea, I just can't. But the really interesting thing that I took from it is you're seeing all these different delegates from different school districts, different areas of states, small rural schools, big urban schools. They all have their unique things that they're pushing for, and you really get talking to these people, and you really get a window into the struggles of other districts or what they think is important that you might just be shaking your head saying, I can't believe that, but it's very interesting to see how this state and all the districts work for their own selves and sometimes come together for the good of all. So
yeah, some of the resolutions you can definitely see where they're coming from, and it ends up pitting rural versus urban. Sometimes in upstate from downstate and all that. But Nick and the administrative team go through those resolutions, and some of them there are positions that we wouldn't necessarily support. So,
and some of them get heated, and they actually they bring friendly amendments or non-friendly amendments and try and change it to get something to go.
That's one job I would not want to be, as the parliamentarian for the delegate assembly. That is not a fun job. But anyway, so with all that description, historically it's been a job for somebody who is relatively new to the board. So we've got 2 new members, and so that's
never
why.
done it either, though. Have you? Oh.
So, I mean, historically, and anyone who's wanted it has generally been unanimously voted. So, okay, very good. All right. All right. So to make this official, do we have a nomination then? Is there a second? All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. We have elected Kate Garza as our delegate. And we need an alternate. So I will nominate Molly as our alternate then.
I second.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We have our delegate and our alternate. And hopefully, we don't have to use the alternate thing, because that would mean that for some reason, but strange things have happened. So anyway, we're set there. Facility committee update and the options for community survey.
Yep. And so the link on here is just the link to the most recent task force meeting, but a couple things just want to touch on. I think all of you were at the meeting on last Monday night, and we have another meeting coming up, kind of our final meeting Monday night, but we're getting very close to getting to the point where we're ready to survey the community and find out what their feedback is and what their thoughts are. Originally we sent, the architects got feedback from the committee on, their thoughts on different things. They came to the committee, I think, a meeting or 2 ago with 5 different options. And 2 of the options had us maintaining all of our current facilities at some level, and 3 of the options had us reducing the number of elementaries that we currently have in the Hudson School District. And then, so we went through some of those conversations again last Monday night. And then at the end of the meeting, the architects had people vote on where they were kind of sitting, so we could get kind of an idea of, are there any options that we really need to kind of just not head down towards that path, or are there any things that people are supporting? And just remind you, these were votes that were done with the community members voting, not the board members voting or district administrators voting. And so the big piece that came out is there were 2 options that kind of rose to the top. Were preferred options were option B, which is to invest in all of the current elementaries, obviously not Rivercrest, but if you get down to option B, and we need to probably change the wording, because it says on their neighborhood schools, but as we've kind of dug into it more, we really technically don't have neighborhood schools when you consider the amount of students that we have that actually are eligible for busing. Heather asked me that question earlier and was able to get the information on that. So I'll talk to that in a minute. But option B was basically to invest in our existing facilities, not change the number of facilities we have. And look at that. And then option E was the other one, which was to consolidate our facilities, which was actually to eliminate EP Rock, Willow River, Holton, and North Hudson, and then to build 2 brand new elementaries on the North Hudson site and on the EP Rock site that would handle the population for those 4 buildings.
Can you go to page 38, Tim? That is kind of the option summary.
Yep. So all of these documents can be found on the district's website. We make sure that they're on there after all of our meetings. And really the way it kind of the preferred options voted out, option B, the preferred option was for 8 of the members. Option E, 12 of the members was the preferred option. And then option C had one vote. As far as the least preferred options, so that was one of the other exercises. It was option A had the least preferred was the least preferred option, and that was basically maintaining all of our buildings, but just sticking maintenance money into those buildings. But really, I think the biggest thing is you'd stick about 55 on here, about $55 million into the elementaries. But when you walk into those buildings, they really wouldn't look any different. And so I think the concern the committee had was people would say we stuck all this money into the elementaries and we didn't really get anything. When we did get stuff, it's all of the mechanicals and the HVAC and things like that. And that's what costs so much. The second preferred option, we kind of did some different questions, was basically E and B. So really the 2 options that have stood out as to where the committee's at right now, and we're going to meet one more time, talk about is primarily B and E. And one of the other things we have to ask the committee is what to do with the middle school, because the middle school is kind of a standalone option that could be either a secondary question. We can run 2 questions if we were to run an referendum, or it could be tied all together. And I think the thing that's important to remember about the middle school is, although yes, we did some work on the middle school back in 2016 when we passed the referendum, it was to add on to the middle school for some of our increased enrollment that we've had there. It was not to remodel the whole middle school and bring it up to where it needs to go. So I think, that's just something to kind of keep in mind. And priority 1 and 2s, when we think about priority 1 and 2s, they're primarily health and safety kind of items. They're mechanical systems, they're roof systems, they're, all the just kind of the things that you have to do to buildings. A lot of times people say, well, why didn't you just do this? Do this as you went. And, the way Wisconsin funds schools is it's almost impossible to do large scale maintenance in your general operating budget. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way. I'd equate it to most people can do, carpet replacement and painting in their house and upgrades here and there. But if all of a sudden the roof goes out and the furnace goes out at the same time, those are started to become really big ticket items, and they might, need a home equity line of credit to accomplish, or a kitchen remodel or something along those lines. So it's kind of the same type of thing where typically the items that we're talking about are large ticket items that are almost impossible to do as you go. We look at the different costs between these options. Between B and E, B is a $101 million option and E is an $89 million option. Now, if you start to break some of those apart, you pull the middle school out, you can pull about 19 million out of each of those. And you look at what is just kind of the elementary cost option. I think the other thing that's important to note, and we've talked about this a little bit, is the board does have some fund balance, and could have, anywhere from $8 to $10 million worth of fund balance to apply to the projects in order to get the overall cost or, tax impact down, as we look at some of those things. So, there's a variety of different things going on, but our goal is to, with the committee, is get them to, we feel like they've kind of dialed in on B and E. Want to get some feedback from the board tonight, because I know you guys have been at the committee meetings, in your thoughts. And some people say, well, are we rushing? Are we not rushing? A lot of the informational pieces with the community goes and happens once the board makes a decision on what they want to move forward with. If you remember when we did the secondary space referendum, I think we had 40 or 50 meetings between the January resolution and the April referendum, where I went and spoke to different groups and community members and things like that, and board members spoke, and we had community meetings and things along those lines. So that all still happens. The biggest difference between this and what we did with secondary space is instead of doing a process steward team, we chose to do the facility committee route and get some feedback that way. We did have our finance person, Brian Brewer from Baird, was in at the last meeting. I think it's important to note that he talked about not only what our options are moving forward, but also what we've done in the past. And we have a history of under promising and over delivering. And so, for example, the mantra when we passed the high school referendum was 90 cents for 90 million. It was going to cost 90 cents on the mill rate to borrow $90 million. And we did that calculations based on very conservative estimates. The similar type of estimates we're calculating for this referendum. But however, this year, if you look at our current mill rate moving forward, or for this year, it's actually going to cost about 45 cents to make the repayments on that. And that there's two reasons for that. One, we were able to borrow money at a better rate than what we originally thought we could borrow. And so it was cheaper for us to borrow the money. And so we have less repayment. And two, our property valuations have gone up. And so sometimes people will say, well, see, Nick, you really haven't over delivered because my property value's gone up, so I'm paying more. Well, yes, you are. But in the last 4 years, people's property value would have to have gone up 100% in value in order for people to have to pay what we told them they were going to have to pay back 4 years ago. I mean, so, and to the best of my knowledge, we haven't had any of that type of growth. We've had a lot of property value growth, don't get me wrong, but not 100% growth. So somebody that had a house that was worth $200,000 back in 2016 would have to be worth now $400,000 today. Not saying it couldn't happen or somebody couldn't find an anomaly, but for the most part, we have been able to deliver at a lesser amount actual real dollars out of people's pocket than what we said we were going to do when we pitched this referendum 4 years ago. And so I guess it's almost 5 years ago now. And so I think that's important. So as we look at the calculations related to what it would cost the district moving forward, we're using, like I said, the same type of calculations. And we'll continue to look at that. A lot of the finance pieces and whether or not you want to go to referendum or not go to referendum or how you want to handle it, I think is the bigger discussion the board will have once we find out what's the community willing to support. And that's kind of a piece that is kind of our next step. Questions?
Well, and the next step being the survey, which we're holding pending this last meeting of the committee.
Yep. So we're going to get final feedback from the committee and we're working on kind of getting the draft. A lot of the survey questions are similar to the survey questions we asked during the secondary space referendum, tax tolerance questions, demographic questions, things along those lines. So our goal is to get the survey down to under 12 pages, and it's not 12 pages worth of questions because there's pictures and there's all kinds of other stuff in there, but it's to make it actually even smaller than we had for the secondary space survey. But our goal would be that the survey would hit mailboxes on December 1st, pending, what the committee decides next Monday. December 1st, it would be out for 2 weeks. And that's typically what we've done for surveys. And then at that point, then the board would be getting the initial results from the surveys on their December 20th meeting. I think that's right. That's a Monday. And you can start to get some feedback as to what the community is thinking. And that will give us some time to decide. The board may say, you know what, we got to go back to the drawing board, or, hey, it looks like we're moving in a reasonably good, direction. What do you want to do? And then, in January, the board again can have some additional meetings about it. And either they can say, you know what, we're going to slow things down a little bit, or we're going to keep on the same path. And you guys would have to make a motion for a resolution no later, I think, than the 25th. Is that right, Tim? 24th, 25th of January, if you wanted to go to referendum in April. Now, again, that's a big if. And that's what we try to tell people. There's a lot of different moving pieces here. But as we're continuing to get the feedback, one of the big differences between E and B is there's a tremendous amount of operational savings on an annual basis. So, B, because you would be making the buildings more energy efficient, but you're not doing anything with staffing, you're going to save probably around $100,000 a year in just energy efficiencies with new efficient buildings through utilities. E, because you're really reducing, the number of sites you have, and you're able to operate a lot more efficiently. We'd be looking at a savings anywhere from 1.5 to just over $2 million annually in operational savings out of our general fund. Because we would be in a little bit more efficient setup with 4 elementaries versus 6 elementaries, as we said. So, questions, comments?
Heather?
Nick, can you remind us if we want to go back and look at those priority 1 and 2? I mean, so that kind of option, that's the bare bones. I mean, I get the sense that at least priority 1 is almost the like, we can't not do this if we're going to operate safe schools. But if we want to be reminded about that, is that in the first
It should
meeting
be.
packet?
I think we have. It'll be in the first meeting packet. We have those in there. And really, the bottom line is we have to do something. So people would say, well, let's not do anything. Well, that doesn't work long term. You're going to have to do something. So you got to decide as a board, are you going to do something as in investing into all of the buildings that we currently have, or are we going to try to reduce the number of buildings that we have? And so that's why there's this kind of this impetus for change, because once we start investing large amounts of dollars into buildings, we prefer to hold on them for a long period of time so that we obviously get use out of that money. But yeah, I mean, the priority 1s and 2s, those are things like boiler systems that need to be redone, HVAC systems. Those are roofs that have to be repaired. I mean, so even if we were to go to a referendum in April and it doesn't pass, we would have to go back again and try to figure out how to get it passed, because we have things we have to do.
Thank you. I guess that was my question. It's there's stuff that we have to do that we can't do without a referendum.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. President.
Bruce.
I would like to just go back and make sure we look at the process that we followed last time, only from the perspective of the timing, and ensure that we're engaging all the community, through different forums and conversations. It'd be a pretty short window to do that, get the feedback. And I think there's some differences here, and time will tell, right? What the outcome will be, but I think ultimately, the fact that money's still very inexpensive to borrow, it's probably a good thing for us to be certainly having this conversation, trying to figure out a solution to get a path where we can manage some of the costs that we're going to be incurring. And I think looking at a couple of different alternatives where we may be taking some schools out is again a prudent thing for us to do as a district and as a board to be at least exploring, and we do that through the good feedback that we get in the surveys. So I think as long as we are prepared for the actions that we need to take from the survey. Seems to me like generally speaking, they're pretty good litmus tests in terms of whether or not we could even get a referendum passed. Yep. So, supportive of continuing to move the process forward. I think it's something we have to do to manage the appropriate costs in the districts and in the district and those costs that are continuing to come at us. Again, I just really want to make sure we're getting the full voice from all of the community in that process, and the task force is a part of that. But yet there's still a lot of other individuals that I think we want to make sure we're engaging, finding ways to educate, particularly about where, some of even the financing is right now. And then, again, making sure that everyone is understanding why we're doing the things that we need to do. It's just, I feel our responsibility as a board is to really make sure that we're engaging the full community in that regard. So, we're taking good steps right now. I just, making sure that we're, creating those opportunities to have those forums where we're getting the full voice from all of the different stakeholders in our community. Thanks.
Okay. Other people's comments? I think the presentation by Brian from Baird was very compelling and probably the most important 10 minutes of all 5 meetings that we've had so far. And, being able to say that, look, we have done this before and projecting what the cost of these things are. They do it extremely conservative. And the last time they did it we're really on year 6 from 2016. But by that time, we're already at roughly half the mill rate impact that we said we were going to be. And if we just filled in that 44 cents or 45 cents, whatever, it's down from the original 90 we told voters back in 2016 that we could have certainly E could be paid for. I don't know about B. B might put us over that 90 cents. But I think it's to follow up on Bruce's point. I think the task force was important to get things off the ground. Certainly the survey is going to be another very important piece, and then see what kind of talk it generates. But this is one we just don't have. It's not as exciting to talk about maintenance needs and so forth than it is when you have a high school where you have only 139 square feet per student, and trying to give people had very good visuals of how packed like sardines the kids were at the high school. And so there was a definite need. But here, people go in our schools, and because of the great job that our janitor, our maintenance people do and so forth, you don't see the obvious glaring, oh my gosh, we got to replace this school type of thing. But we saw it in the secondary space at the high school when that one architect, I can't remember which one, did the facility needs and came up with a number that was $36 to $40 million just in maintenance that needed to be done at the high school. Now, we ended up pushing it off. And if we hadn't have remodeled the high school, we would have incurred those costs. But by the time that we were addressing them, they were going to be double what they were estimated to be when they first did the survey. And with the rates of construction inflation being 8 to 10%, and right now with the cost of money being so extremely low, we'd be doing a disservice to our constituents if we didn't bring this up in currently right now. I think waiting is detrimental to our taxpayers if we wait on this.
Yeah, I think that's the big challenge. I mean, construction inflation is anywhere from 4 to 7% up to 10%. And right now we can borrow money, they believe, for less than 2. And that's going to be our big challenge. We really wanted to start down this path, this conversation back in 2019 when the board originally approved World Architects as the architects to help us through this process. And then COVID came and kind of delayed us a year and kind of pushed us a little bit. And I would agree with Bruce. I think there's a lot of community involvement and education that needs to happen with our community with this. I think, creating some level of sense of urgency, I think, is going to be important as we continue to look at this. But it was interesting because we thought, maybe option A would be one that we'd want to at least check. But, according to members of the community, the committee, I mean, really nobody wanted option A. And I think the biggest reason was it was a lot of money still. And when he got done, it was like, I don't really have much to show for it. I mean, and whereas option B, at least, even if you kept all of the buildings, you at least had something that, you could see what your money was invested in. So, and then I think when we talked through C and D, those really had conversations about, if you were going to have to consolidate buildings or lose a building, at least if you were going to a brand new school, you have that to look forward to versus trying to go to a remodeled school that maybe still not going to fit quite right. And people say, well, you remodeled the high school, why can't you remodel the elementaries? And the biggest thing is the way the high school was built lent itself well to what we did with it. It was a giant cast in place concrete structure. So you just have to remember, though, we tried I think the district tried before I got here to do something in another location, and people said, nope, we want it at that location, that spot. And so that based on what the community feedback we got, that's why we did what we did at the high school. And I think that's why it'll be important to survey the community on the elementary situation as well.
Well, elementary, we could put a question, the survey about the middle school and whether the community is ready to hear about those needs and want to, see where that's at.
We have it, and actually in the survey that we're starting to draft, we have the middle school actually broken out as a totally separate question.
I think that's smart.
So people can look at, okay, here's option 1 elementary, here's option 2 with the elementary, and then here's, give us your feedback on the middle school portion. Is kind of how we have it broken out.
And on this PowerPoint, the operations page was blank because I know it's a work in progress, hard to nail down all those operational savings, to the penny, like Tim can do with so many other things when it comes to finances in this district. But still, even if you took a midpoint of that range of 1.5 million to something over 2 million annually, let's take the 1.75 and then you extrapolate it out over the 20 years that we'll be buying the bonds and financing this. That's $35 million. In essence, you're getting option E. You're getting one whole new school for no tax impact net tax impact to the taxpayers because you're getting it back in operational savings over that time. So that is something that I hope the community is going to understand. It's going to take some time, like a lot of educational meetings to do that. But anyway, Bob, do you have something?
I just mentioned that one of the things that was impressive about the committee work that I witnessed was their understanding of looking at long-term situation, 20-year solution versus just, because you're right. Whoever mentioned that, yeah, the buildings look fine. There's paint on the walls. There's not stained ceiling tiles. It's maintained, but are they efficient? And do we want to invest in properties that still will be problematic in the future? And, some things that come to light are, Willow is a school that is, allows a lot of walking. Well, not really. There's a lot of people bus to Willow because of the Willow River and the geographic limitations. And a lot of those things are coming out. And I think when people take a look at that, they'll start to see that we'd rather put money into a long-term solution than put more money into a potential shorter term solution. And then we're stuck with buildings that we have to address later. And so basically money not going to programming, going to inefficient buildings.
Yeah. And I think, one of the questions asked, what percentage of our kids, when people talk about neighborhood schools. So just to give you an idea, 92% of the kids at Holton are eligible for transportation. North Hudson, 51%. So that means they live more than a mile essentially from the school, or they, wouldn't be considered a safe route to school based on what kind of traffic they'd have to cross. Willow River, 65% of the kids that go to Willow River are eligible for transportation. A lot of people think of Willow as just being a downtown school, and actually that boundary goes all the way out to east of the town of Hudson. And so it's not just downtown. EP Rock, even though it sits like right in the middle of a neighborhood, it's 70% of its boundary is eligible for busing. If you think about that, we have, if you think of the Red Cedar Canyon area, which is actually south of the interstate, that all goes to EP Rock Elementary School. Rivercrest, 87% of Rivercrest students are eligible for transportation. And Hudson Prairie, 85% of the students at Hudson Prairie are eligible for transportation. And so it is probably a little bit misleading to say that we have neighborhood schools from the standpoint of if you think about large quantities of our students walking to school. We definitely do have some that do walk to school, but it would not be the norm. If you've ever had to either pick up your child before or after school, you see the number of buses that are there, or B, you see the number of cars that you're having to deal with as other parents are dropping their kids off at school or picking them up. When you get into the middle school and high school, 95% of our kids qualify for busing to the middle school. So, as we start to look at this, it really is about how do we operate in a more efficient manner long term. We don't have those walking schools like everybody, I think, kind of in their mind might think that we do. But this was a piece of information that somebody had asked for. And so we pulled this today and It kind of shocked me a little bit. I mean, we have a lot of people that are eligible for busing, and that would mean, like I said, it's more than a mile, or there's not a safe route to that building. So like having to cross the interstate would be considered unreasonable to have a kindergarten across the reason. Yeah. So,
all right. Any other questions on this or comments? All right.
Yeah, I guess I would just echo, this is going to be a communications challenge, right? Because it's a lot to get your arms around. You know, even one thing that we haven't talked about and that really stuck with me from that meeting last Monday was the replacement value numbers, you know, and to look at with option B as an example, what's proposed at EP Rock, which is a little bit of new space, but kind of to your point about not a lot will look different. And that's the cost of that is 94% of the replacement value for that school, which, you know, when you look at the smart money question, it just, wow, I mean, that's hard. But then you balance that with, and I get it, people have a very nostalgic attachment to the existing building. I mean, there are memories there. We've got families who are parents who their kids are now attending the school they attend. I mean, so I totally understand. And I think we need to create room for that conversation about what's the value of that piece, because there's value. But I do think that I'm looking across the room at Tracy. The communication piece here is just going to be really challenging. How do you take all of these complex bits and put them together in a bite-sized piece that people will read and be able to make sense of, and then hopefully make an informed decision based on their own.
Are we allowed to mandate that voters attend a 90-minute meeting on this before they vote? Only people that attend the meeting can vote.
Yeah, it's not how it works, but it is, and that's all the more reason why to get the the direction knocked down or nailed down is so that we know what exactly it is that we are communicating out to people so they know what they're voting on. I mean, our goal is to make sure we're as transparent as possible. If people say, hey, we really want A or we really want B or E, we're putting the facts out there. Some people will say, boy, it looks like you really lean this way or that way. Well, the facts lean a certain direction. And when you start to have a lot of facts stack up in one direction, it does start to become a challenge to keep an open mind to some of the other options. So, all right. Well, so if you're at the last meeting, it is at Hudson Prairie and the middle school. It is next Monday, right, Tim?
Right. 6 o'clock. We'll start at the middle school, do a tour, and then do a short tour of Prairie as well.
And then the meeting will commence at Prairie. Is that where it's going to be?
At Prairie, correct. 6:30.
So just to give you kind of an idea, and then like I said, our goal is to hopefully, have survey out and dropped in mailboxes by December 1st so we can get feedback. We do know that we get probably about 90% of the survey responses come back, and they usually in the first couple days. When you say, Tracy, it's been our experience. There's not a lot of people that are waiting the full 2 weeks to do the survey. So
when you say the meeting's at Prairie after the tours, is that the cafeteria or the media center or?
I think we've got this set up for the media center.
Okay.
But we'll check. We'll send out a reminder on Friday and one on Monday as well.
Very good. Right. Anything else on that? Otherwise, moving on to our final action agenda item is the adult meal pricing change.
Yep. So this is unusual, but because we're participating in what's called the seamless summer option program. And that's the one that allows all kids to eat meals for free. We're reimbursed by the USDA through DPI. And so mid-October, DPI informed all districts across the state that you need to look at your adult meal prices because of the reimbursement rates that have gone up through the SSO program since last year. So under that requirement, adult breakfast would move from $2.30 to $2.56, and lunch would move from $3.90 to $4.65. And this is a requirement of the USDA. But since you normally approve lunch pricing We brought it back to you just as more of an FYI than anything else, but we do need to move that. And so we did institute that price increase.
So who does this affect, like staff?
It affect, only if you're an adult eating a meal. So yeah, mainly staff.
Move to approve.
There's been a motion, a second to approve. Any further discussion or questions of Tim? Everyone had this in their packet, so I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand, needing to ask a bunch of questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.